This video is a goldmine of wisdom. We're going to learn some amazing techniques to improve any shot inside of DaVinci Resolve. This is perfect if you're a beginner because it's going to expand your mind on what's possible inside this amazing software. Let's get into it. Here we are in DaVinci Resolve, and I have 3 clips here: lady hanging clothes on the clothesline, exploring a creepy old basement, and a crashed UFO in the woods. I love each of these shots for different reasons, and they already look great, but I want to show you a couple tricks that you can use on just about any shot to make these even better. Let's go into this first shot, and we're just going to jump into the color page. So all I have to do is go down and click on color, and that's going to have this shot selected. I'll just go up and close my gallery and close my clips so we have a little bit of room here, because we're just going to work on this one shot for now. Move my camera up so we can see what we're doing. So this shot looks amazing. But if we really want to pop this and make it look just kind of next level, the name of the game is just enhancing what is there. So this isn't going to be something where I do some big kind of crazy look, because even though it's different, it's, we're kind of fighting against the style that's already there in the image. And so what we want to do, I'll just reset everything, is take what's there and just enhance it. That's going to give you the best result all the time. So one thing that I like about this is this kind of glowy sort of lens flare kind of feeling. And I think I just want to take that up a notch. So one thing that we can do is we can go to our effects here in the color page, and I'll just search for lens, and this will bring up our lens flare. Now this is only available in the paid version of Resolve, the studio version, but I can take this lens flare and just drop this onto our node, and that's going to make a lens flare here. We can take this and just put this kind of in the sky there and just kind of push this up a little bit. And we have already something that looks like it belongs there, but definitely helps this image be a little bit more interesting, right? Now you can overdo lens flares. I know not everybody's a fan of them, but in this kind of circumstance where there's actually a lens flare happening over here already, we can kind of make it bigger and prettier and more glowy. In fact, I'll even go over to my lens flare preset here, and I'm going to grab our modern sci-fi because that is more of an anamorphic flare. That means that it has kind of this big streak. And I think I'm just going to push this up so we just have kind of a big glow here. And we also have this streak going across. Now, I don't necessarily want this across her face, but I think it's subtle enough to where it's fine. Let's kind of scrub through this. We want this to kind of follow the movement of this shot. And so we can just keyframe this. We could do tracking and everything, but really with a big soft lens flare like this, if you get it even kind of close to the movement of the shot, it's going to be fine. So we're going to take the center of this and we're going to start this like right here on the edge like that. And I'm going to go to position and just keyframe this position like this. I'll just add a keyframe. We're going to kind of keep an eye on where this is supposed to be. So just kind of to the right of these 2 little trees here. So we'll kind of move over this way, and we're going to take this and move it over here to the right of those 2 little trees. And now we're going to go kind of in the middle, make sure we're sort of in that same place. And yeah, is the track perfect? No. But because it's a big soft flare, nobody's going to notice. Nobody's going to notice. It's going to work just fine. So now we have this flare that really adds that kind of glowy sort of look. And I like that a lot. Now, the other thing about this kind of glowy look is I want to kind of push that warmth a little bit. This is relatively neutral. These whites are white. Her skin looks good, but it's not super tan or saturated or anything like that. And so we can kind of boost that just a little bit. And again, being subtle here is what's important. So I think actually before that lens flare, I'll just hit Shift S to add a node before this. And let's rename these. I'll right click and node label this, and we'll just call this flare. And this one, we're going to call it warm. We're just going to warm this up a little bit. And there's a lot of ways that you can do this. We're going to keep it really simple, and I'm just going to push a little bit of warmth into the gamma. So I'm going to take this gamma and just push it just a little warm. I'm going to go maybe just a little too far, just to where I really notice it. Something like that, and then we'll just kind of bring it back a little bit, something like that, okay? So here's before and here's after. So it's really subtle. We're just barely putting a little bit of warmth in there. Now, if you want, you could go a little bit crazier. Maybe I will just so we can really notice this. So like, let's push this a little bit more warm somewhere in there. So here's before and here's after. So we're really just kind of pushing that sunlight kind of feeling. And that feels really good. It doesn't feel like it's overly warm. We don't have this huge warm wash over everything, right? So I'm not doing something like this where it's like really, really warm. Although you can make the argument that, again, because this is kind of a sunset sort of thing, maybe it's not the very worst thing we could do, but I'd say it's a little strong. All right, so let's take that off. And so yeah, here's the difference. Here's before and here's after, okay? Just a little bit of warmth. The other thing I might do is just add a tiny touch of contrast. So let's maybe after this warm, let's take this and just barely do a little S curve like this. Just a little one, all right? I might even take the very darkest parts and push that up a little bit, something like that. So here's before and here's after. So we're just kind of brightening things up, adding a little bit of contrast, a little bit of clarity here, just to really make that look really nice, okay? Before all the color grades, and here's after, right? So it's not a huge difference. It still feels kind of the same, but it's just an enhanced version of it. And again, I'd probably even just take this warmth back a little bit. One thing I can do is grab this node and go down to this icon right here, which is our key palette, and take this key output gain and just take this and just drag it this way. And that's kind of like the opacity or the strength of the node. We'll just take this down to like half, all right? So here's before and here's after. Very, very subtle, okay? You want to be able to say, like, if you look at it, you go, yeah, I think that's warm, but not that it's obviously really, really warm. This is all dependent on the context of your movie and what your other shots are and everything. Everything that I'm showing you today, this might be the case where you stylize one shot and then you match the other shots to it. But I think that looks really nice. Again, just enhancing that sunset look. And it's really, really easy. So we just have the flare, we have a little bit of warmth and a little bit of contrast to just kind of really pop this. Let's take a look at our next shot here. What I like about this is there's a little bit of particles here, but I think that we could make this even dustier. We can add a little bit of texture to this. You can do this in a variety of different ways. This is probably easiest to do in the Fusion page. All right, so we're gonna work a little bit in Fusion and then a little bit in color just to kind of enhance this a little bit. Do you need to do this for every shot ever? No, not necessarily, but it's a fun trick that I wanna show you. So I'm gonna be over this shot and then just go down to Fusion. And this is going to bring up our Fusion interface. Now, if you're brand new to Fusion and you've never used it before, then this can be a little bit intimidating. I do have a lot of videos on the basics of Fusion. And so if nothing else, I want to just show you something that's possible here. What we can do is we can make some fake particles here that can kind of move around like dust. We can kind of generate our own dust. Of course, you can also use videos of dust, and that will make this a little bit easier. But if you don't have that, even in the free version of Resolve, you can go in and you can make a particle system inside of Fusion here. So let's grab this icon right here, which is a emitter, and then this one, which is a render. Let's connect the emitter to the render. Let's select that render and I'll just drag it up here so we can see what's going on. This is by default making a bunch of 3D particles, which is a little bit overkill. Probably won't need to do that. We can just do 2D particles. With this render selected, I'll go up to output mode and select 2D. And that's going to make an image here with the particles. And if I play this back, it's just adding particles within this circle. That's because of the emitter. So if I select this emitter, I can adjust a bunch of options here to kind of define what my particles do, what they look like, how many appear, what they're doing, all of that. So I'll select this emitter and go up to region, and this is going to define where the particles appear. So here under region, by default, it's sphere. I'm just going to select all. So that's going to put all these particles all over here. Now, these are a little bit hard to see. So I'm going to go to style. And for style, instead of point, I'm going to switch this to blob. Now I'm going to twirl down our size controls and push up the size. Okay. And I'll just make these kind of big so we can see them. So there's all of our particles. And if I were to play this back, we can see it's just adding a bunch of particles every frame. Now, this isn't exactly what I want. I'm kind of trying to emulate dust here. And so I want the dust to already be there. I just kind of want it floating around. We're going to keyframe this emitter to just make a bunch of dust the first frame and then not make any more dust. We can do that by going to controls. And here where it says number, let's make a bunch. I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 for the first frame. And I'll keyframe that. And then I'll go one frame later by hitting the right bracket on the keyboard. So I'm at frame 1. And then I'm just going to take the number down to 0. Now all we're doing is we're putting a bunch of particles here and then they all die. Let's make the lifespan a little bit longer. So now we're putting in a bunch of particles and they're doing nothing. Let's have them do something. I'll hit Shift Spacebar. I'm going to run this through a particle effect called turbulence, P-turbulence, like that. And now look what happens. It kind of makes them wiggle. We're going to take the strength down a little bit just so we don't have them wiggling too much. Just a little bit of wiggling. There we go. A little different. We'll grab this emitter and go to velocity, push up the velocity just a little bit, just so they're kind of floating there. Go to style and change our size variance. Make some of them bigger and some of them smaller. And I'll take the overall size down a little bit. So now we have these kind of floating little dust particles. We can switch back over to our controls and let's push up the angle variance. That's going to change the angle in which they're floating. Just kind of randomize it a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Now we have this kind of floating dust. And now I'm going to take this render and I can merge this over our original footage like this. Okay, let's look at our media out. And now we have all this dust over our original footage. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Let's go back to our emitter and our color. And let's make this kind of a tan, something like that. And maybe we'll start with a little less dust. Just going back to my first keyframe and just bringing this down a little bit. Something like that. We have a little bit of dust. Great. Go to our style and adjust our size variance. Just so some are big and some are small. There we go. That's looking cool. That's looking a little bit more realistic. Now, normally I would probably make these pretty subtle. I could take this merge and take the blend of my merge and take that blend down a lot. So just make them just barely visible like this. But because it's harder to see on the recording, I'm just going to keep the blend all the way up just so we can see what's going on, okay? But normally we'd probably make that a little more subtle. And now what I can do is mask this dust to kind of happen inside of a light shaft kind of thing like this. So let's just grab a polygon mask, this third icon over here, just drag that down and connect this to the blue input of merge one. And then I'll just kind of select this polygon and we'll just kind of make something like that. Soften that edge a little bit, and we'll just kind of play around with this just so we have a little bit of a light shaft here. If I were to open up both viewers here and take this polygon and push this over here, we can see how soft this mask is. Nice soft mask. If you can get away with a soft mask, that just helps a lot. Let's play this back. Yeah, so now we have this kind of dust happening in that light shaft. It's really starting to make this feel a lot more dusty. And we have a little bit of camera movement at the end that we should probably deal with. I'm not going to worry about it right now. You kind of get the idea. And that's kind of like our particle compositing part. Let's switch over to the color page. That'll just bring this up in our color page here. And again, what we want to do is just enhance the style that's already there. All right. We don't want to completely reinvent the look here. We just want to maximize the look that is there. So the first thing I think I want to do is maybe just take some of this green out and just kind of purify this a little bit. I don't know if I'm feeling the green. I think it might look better, maybe just a little warm instead of green. So we could take this tint and just take this a little bit to the right and take some of that green out. That's going to help a lot. We could take the temperature, play around with that a little bit. Actually kind of like that moving a little bit more cool. So here's before and here's after. We're just kind of purifying this and taking a little bit of that green out. Other things, so let's rename this D green. I'll make another node, just hitting Alt-S to make another node. Let's do a little bit of contrast. And again, I'm going to kind of do the same thing. I'm just going to do a little bit of an S-curve, get a little bit of that contrast. That feels nice. And then we'll also maybe just darken this foreground a little bit. So I could make a window on this. That's this palette right here. I can grab a circle window and I'll just kind of make this big and soft like this. And we'll just kind of put this on the edge like this. And now that I have that part selected, anything that I do in this node is only going to happen within this mask. So if I make it really pink, that's going to happen right there in that mask. So I'm going to reset that and I'll just take the offset down. Just push that offset down a little bit, something like that. Maybe move this over so we don't crush those blacks too much on the left. So here is just really subtle. We're just taking that down a little bit. That's cool. I think that looks really cool. Here's before and here's after. Again, just kind of clarifying this, making it a little bit nicer and adding those particles. Again, I would probably take those particles down a little bit, but I want you to be able to see them. We have little particles there. Really makes this feel a little bit more magical. I love that. All right, let's take a look at our last shot here. This shot of a crashed UFO. Oh my gosh, I love this so much. So this is actually an AI generated video, which was created with the tools on Artlist. Big thanks to them for sponsoring this video. We don't do a lot of sponsors on this channel, but with Artlist, we use Artlist for so many things. And they have stock music and footage. They have a huge library of sound effects, and it's all super high quality stuff that you'd actually use. They have all kinds of AI tools. They have AI voiceover generation, which is just insanely good.
Here's the best way to make better videos in DaVinci Resolve.
Sounds really natural. They have AI image generation and image to image and image to video, and it just keeps getting better all the time. And so what I did to make this clip was I just typed in text to video, a crashed spaceship in the forest. And I got a few different options, and I ended up picking one that I liked, this one right here. But I wanted it more kind of buried. And so with the image to image, you can just upload the image that you got and describe how to change it. So I said something like bury this in the earth, and I got a variety of different kinds of buried spaceships here. And I ended up going with this one, but I wanted it to be at night. So I told it to turn it into nighttime, and I ended up with this one, which was great. Totally the vibe I was going for. And then you can take any image and you can convert it to a video. And here we have the converted video, which is pretty sweet. The whole process was really easy, and it gave me a fantastic result that I can put into Resolve and further refine. Artlist has become one of the major tools that we use to create our projects, and I can't recommend them enough. So click the link in the description to get a smoking deal on an Artlist sub. They have pretty much all of the assets that you need to be able to create videos, even with just stuff that's on Artlist. You can even get high quality footage that's ungraded, so you can practice making videos just with what's on Artlist. It's an insane deal. If I were a beginner and I wanted to get better at video editing, I'd pretty much just get an Artlist subscription and grab a bunch of stuff from there and practice editing and effects and color grading. I mean, you just cannot beat practice, and Artlist is an amazing resource for all kinds of practice footage as well as media for pretty much anything that you're working on. So anyway, let's take this shot and make it even better. Now, a lot of the stuff that we're going to do here, you could probably do in the color page, but it's maybe a little easier. You have a little bit more control in the Fusion page. So let's switch over to Fusion. And there's a couple main things that I'm really looking at here. One is I want to crop this to kind of be more widescreen. The other is that if we kind of zoom in here, what happens with some AI kind of generated content is there's sort of like this over sharp kind of look, which we can get rid of with maybe just like a little bit of diffusion, a little bit of blurring, just to make this look a little bit more organic. And so let's first of all kind of just crop this. I could just run this through a crop node, and let's make our Y size 800. There we go. We can change our Y offset. I think that's about right though. Something like that, just kind of a widescreen. That works. Then I think after that crop, I'm going to reduce some of the noise here. So if I were to kind of zoom in here, it might be a little bit hard to see, but there's kind of this like cloudy noise on it. I can kind of push up my gain and gamma and kind of adjust this so you can see it a lot better. But there's kind of this like blocky noise. And what we can do is we can use noise reduction to kind of get rid of that. Now, you could use the noise reduction inside of Resolve with a lot of messing around, but what I really like is there is a plugin called Neat Video Reduce Noise. And I would highly recommend getting that if you're going to do any kind of noise reduction, just because it's really, really easy. So I'll add that. And what I'm going to do is just click on Prepare Noise Profile right here. And I'm going to select a part of our clip that there isn't anything else going on. It's just kind of a blank space. And that's going to analyze that noise. If I hit Build Profile and hit Apply, it's going to analyze that noise. And now check this out. If I were to push up this gain and gamma, so here's without the noise reduction and here's with it. It really takes away a lot of that noise. And there's still a little bit moving around, but it's a lot better. So we have some noise reduction. The other thing I want to do is add a little bit of lens distortion. I want the lens to kind of bow out a little bit, sort of like we're shooting with an anamorphic lens. And so let's just run this through a lens distortion node. What that's going to do is kind of just bow that in. And I think I want to bow it in just a little bit, not too much. And then we're going to take a transform node and just scale that up just to where it kind of fills the outside of the frame. It's also going to kind of blur it a little bit as we scale this up, which is actually going to help with some of the over sharpening. So now we have just a little bit of distortion happening to our shot, and I think that looks really nice. The other thing about like an anamorphic lens is it's kind of softer on the edges. And so here's a little trick that I like. And I'm just going to pick a directional blur. We'll just use the good old directional blur. And what we're going to do is we're going to blur it kind of up and down. All right. So if we push up this length, this is blurring it side to side. And so let's change this angle to 90 degrees. And let's, for type linear, let's go type centered like that. And then we're just going to reset this length and just push this up a little bit, just so it's starting to blur this up a little bit. And that's going to give us sort of a oval shaped bokeh. It's not really the same, but it's a quick way to give a little bit of that kind of oblong bokeh that you'll get from those kind of lenses. But we're mostly going to do this on the edges. And so I'm going to take a circle mask, plug this mask into the directional blur like this, and we're just going to make this a lot more intense at the edges. So I'll invert this mask. Let's actually take a look at this mask here and soften the edges like this. There we go. So now we have this directional blur is going to be applied where it's white here. Take this directional blur up like that. And now on the edges here, if we take our directional blur off and on, we'll see that we have, especially here on the edges here, we have this really kind of being blurred up and down like that. Maybe we want to take this length up just a little more. There we go. So now we have some softness on the edges here, especially here with the fire. That really kind of helps the edges a little bit. Also want to add just a little bit of a lens blur, again, just because this is still kind of sharp. Shift spacebar, lens blur. This is, again, only available in the paid version of Resolve. Lens blur is amazing though. So we're going to take this, make sure we're looking at the media out. This is too much blur. Lens blur is kind of weird because it actually starts at either 1 or 1.5 pixels blur. And like that's where it actually starts to take hold, which is kind of interesting. And so if you have blur at 0 and you were to animate this up from 0 to 1.5, you wouldn't even notice any difference here. It's kind of strange. So if we do like 1.6, where we have just a little bit of blur here, let's just kind of push this up until we see it here. 1.62, great. So we're just kind of giving a little bit of blur to this. There we go, like this. And again, let's take some anamorphism. Here, I'm going to preview this shape. This is going to give us the bokeh shape. I want to curve the blades and push this anamorphism down like this so it's a oval, kind of like that. It's actually an ellipse, technically. An oval is like an egg shape. I don't know if you knew that, but it's true. It's an ellipse. Let's go with something like that. We're just taking away that really sharp edge here, which does make this look a little bit blurry. But actually, especially if you were to shoot this with an anamorphic lens, it would be a little bit blurry. And so it's okay to give it a little bit of character here. The other thing I want to do is add a little bit of lens reflections. So this is a really cool plugin, lens reflections. And what this does is this adds kind of streaks to the lens. It's almost like an automatic lens flare, kind of. Let's go to preset, and I think we'll just go to streaks. Yeah, so here we have kind of this glow that's happening. See, it's just pretty subtle, but it's really nice. That lens reflection, that's probably going to be one of the last things we do. Before that, let's even work with our cinematic haze. This is such a cool plugin. This is brand new in Resolve 20.2. And what this does is this makes a depth map of the shot, and it adds haze and scatters light and does all kinds of cool stuff here. You just put it on and it looks better. Now, this looks really, really smoky, and so it's probably a little bit too crazy, but we can play with, you know, maybe the gamma, maybe the density, all kinds of things we can play with here to really kind of dial this in a little more. Yeah, something like that. That looks pretty nice. So here's before and here's after. It's maybe just a little strong still, but I think it's cool. We can go to light rays and enable light rays. This is cool. We could change that source threshold and see how it's kind of like brightening these parts. And here where it says ray directions, let's go to from a location, and that'll let us pick a location. Look at this. We can kind of have this be kind of shooting out rays. We can colorize this to be a little bit more kind of greenish. That looks cool. Take this air light down just a little bit so it's not so intense. And we can really just dial this stuff in. That looks so sick. That looks so much better. I mean, it really takes it from, okay, that's cool, to that's sick. All right, on top of all of this, we're going to add some film grain. We're just going to say film grain, just the normal FGR right there. Take the size down a lot, take the strength down a lot. We're just going to push this in just a little bit, just so we can barely see it. Something like that. Oh, that looks so good. And that's just going to kind of tie everything together. I'll make this just a little bit more intense so you can see it on YouTube. So now we have all of these things that we're running through this, and you don't have to do all of them, but there's so many cool tools that you can use. So here's before, it looks cool. Here's after. Oh, it just looks so sick. So now we have this amazing shot that's just really next level. I just think that's so cool. So yeah, quite a few fun techniques to improve pretty much any image inside of Resolve. This one was really fun. I love diving into these kind of things and being creative and kind of just tweaking things. Just a reminder, if you want to check out Artlist, you can get a smoking deal down in the description. There's a link there, and I hope this has been helpful for you. Let me know in the comments what your favorite part was, okay? That'd be cool. I would like that a lot. That'd be cool.